and this is Chapter 10, The Rat. Hello and welcome back to Riverwood Cabin. I'm Rosie Boom and I'm reading to you from Where Lions Roar at Night. And this is Chapter 10, The Rat. Millie woke while it was still dark and peered at her watch. 5:30. Too early to wake up Mum just yet. She lay in bed and listened to the night sounds. Harsh squawks of pukekos came from somewhere near the river. Maybe a rat or a stoat was worrying their nest. She twisted and turned for a few minutes and then quietly threw the sheets off and slipped out of bed. Angel looked up from her chair as Millie came down the stairs, then tucked her nose under her paws and closed her eyes again. Millie opened the door and tiptoed out onto the front porch. She peered through the darkness across the field and caught a glimpse of a shadowy silver shape. Her heart beat faster. Pharaoh. She sat on a chair and watched him as he moved like a ghost through the early morning mist. A low, deep rumble echoed across the hills and Millie shivered. Lions. They made a real racket most mornings and evenings, but it still gave her a thrill to hear them. And it definitely sounded creepier coming through the mist. She sat still and quiet and listened to Aslan roar for at least 5 minutes. Then she got up and tiptoed back to bed. Auntie Penny came down when it was time to try out Pharaoh. Both she and Mum had ridden when they were young. Auntie Penny had kept riding through the years, whereas Mum had sold her horse when she went nursing. Pharaoh galloped away when he saw the halter, and it was a while before they managed to catch him. "He's got a lovely face," said Auntie Penny, "kind eyes, but I'm guessing he'll have plenty of spirit." Mum stroked his nose. "He hasn't been ridden for at least 6 years. She bent down and breathed into his nostrils. He breathed back onto her face. Millie watched anxiously as Auntie Penny quietly swung into the saddle. Pharaoh stamped his feet and hunched his back, and for one horrible moment, Millie thought he was going to buck her off. He jittered around, but Auntie Penny spoke quietly to him, and Mum led him off in a circle. Millie watched him dance around, his tail high in the air. He looked beautiful. Her heart was thumping when Auntie Penny finally rode him back to where everyone stood watching. "Well," she said, patting his neck, "he's a wonderful horse, but I'm afraid there's no way in the world he's suitable for a learner." Millie felt her heart sink and she blinked hard. Mum nodded and put an arm around Millie's shoulders. "Don't worry, darling. You're just going to have to be patient. We'll find you a beautiful pony." "Absolutely," said Auntie Penny. "The last thing you need is a jumpy, excitable Arab. Something will turn up. I'll ring around my friends and let them know we need a quiet, reliable pony." Millie nodded and stood stroking Pharaoh's silky nostrils. Patience. That was one thing she found really hard. She blinked back a few tears. He would have been such a beautiful horse to have as her very own. "Will you come and give me a bit of a hand?" called Dad. "I need to get these bulls into the front paddock. Sam, open that gate. Millie, stand over there." Milly turned and ran to the fence, glad for the diversion. She didn't want Auntie Penny to see her tears. The 10 black bulls trotted down the drive. They were massive. Dad reckoned they'd weigh close to 800 kilograms each. When they reached the new paddock, they ran around and jostled each other, pushing and shoving. Angel ran behind them barking and then streaked past their noses, totally ignoring Milly's whistle. "Silly dog," said Dad. "One of these days she's going to get too close." Just then they heard a shriek from inside. Ellie came racing down the stairs. Mum ran towards her and then stopped. "Is it a rat?" "No," wailed Ellie. "I just saw a huge spider by my bed." Mum's face relaxed. "Oh, is that all? I thought it was a rat." "But it's huge, enormous." Ellie shuddered and sat down on the porch. Mum went and got the fly spray in a jar. "Well, I might be scared of rats, but I don't mind spiders." Then she shot a look at Dad and added, "or moths." When she got to Ellie's bed, she checked all around, but the spider was nowhere to be seen. "It's in there, it must be." Ellie pointed to a crack in the wall. Mum gave the area a good spray and then waited. Seconds later, a large, hairy spider crept out. Ellie inched backwards. Mum quickly put the jar over it and then slid a piece of paper over the top of the jar. "Well, it's not exactly huge. Big enough though, I guess. We'll keep it to show Sam and Jake." "I'll never be able to sleep there tonight," wailed Ellie. "Imagine what other things are in this old barn." Mum looked at her and smiled. "Not as many creepy crawlies as in New Guinea, Ellie, and we survived. But we'll keep your mosquito net up a bit longer if you like." By the time Sam and Jake got to see the spider, it had curled up into a very insignificant ball and died. "Girls are so sissy," said Jake. "Doubt it," snapped Milly. "Who was the one who freaked out when he saw a weta?" Jake stuck his tongue out at her. But it was Mum who really freaked out later that afternoon. Someone reported a sighting of a rat in the bathroom. It was the first rodent that had been seen in the barn since they'd moved in, just when Mum was beginning to think that Shasta and the dogs would keep them at bay completely. Dad grinned at the sight of her worried face and told her she needed to toughen up and be brave. She glared at him. "There is no way I am having a bath tonight," she said in a steely voice. "You can mock me as much as you like, but I am not going in there." Milly looked at the others and grinned. They didn't often see Mum get grumpy or stroppy, but she was definitely heading that way now, especially as Dad never knew when to stop teasing. Mum was not going to appreciate being told she needed a bit more of the pioneering spirit. Not at all.